How old were you when you got up one morning and said, Mama, I want my eggs scrambled this morning? And I went, Mama, about what age did that happen?
Oh, man, I tell people, I jokingly tell people that, it was like this when I first came out of the womb. And the first song I ever sang was "Tonight the Bottle Let Me Down." Just a baby bottle. But no, I kind of, the Lord kind of surprised me, honestly, because I developed a passion to sing early on in my life. I sang my first country song in front of a crowd when I was 13 years old. I started playing guitar and writing songs when I was 17 years old. My first trip to Nashville, though, was to the Vanderbilt Voice Clinic with a vocal injury because I didn't know there was a proper way to sing. And so I was pushing my voice. I wasn't taking care of it. I wasn't breathing right. I was singing out of my range. And so that basically led to a year of vocal rest and classical voice training and just learning about the anatomy and how to take care of it. And as I went through that training, I started to heal. I started to learn how to use my voice. I moved to Nashville, started going to Belmont, and I continued that training there at Belmont. And after a while, I started noticing that my voice could do things that it never could do before. And so there I was with this injury. When I first found out about it, I was scared to death. I'm thinking my career's down the tubes, like there's no way I'm going to get a record deal. I've lost my voice. But then the Lord took that and basically made my voice even better on the, after the healing of my voice and everything. So it was really a blessing in disguise. So I'm just thankful I had the perseverance and the determination to put in the hard work, put in the time, to be patient and see it through. And like I say, I learned things through that process that are helping me today, because when you have a grueling touring schedule and interviews and all that kind of stuff, and you're using your voice constantly, you have to learn how to take care of it, or else you're going to, hurt it again. So
I find as I get older that talking is tougher on me than singing. You think that's true?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, the hardest scenario for my voice is when I'm in a loud room and I'm having to talk over noise, especially as somebody who has a lower voice. It's harder for my voice to cut through the noise and all of that. And so when that just wears me out completely. And when my voice is tired, I'm like, my whole being is out of whack. Like I don't have energy. I'm not in a good mood, and it's all contingent upon, the health of my voice.
Folks don't understand, that half of what we do, I think this is the whole problem with during this pandemic, going back to church and saying, okay, you can go back to church, but you got to stay 6 feet away. You got to wear a mask. You can't touch. You can't hug. And you can't exchange juices in the air, I guess. Yeah. And you want to say, you don't understand. That's what we do. That's called congregating. You take that all out and just put them in front of a computer. I guess it'll do. Just seeing people on a screen, but it's not the same as going to church. But at the same time, I've had to make a decision as I got older. And talking to people is very, very important, but do they want me to talk to them or want me to give them a program on the stage that night? And sometimes you just have to make a decision. I can't do both, right?
Yeah. Whoever wrote "In the Garden," I think they had social distancing in mind. I come to the garden alone, so they had it figured out. But yeah, it's a crazy time. And And I tell people, I told somebody yesterday, they asked me, they were like, well, we know you're a man of faith, what's a message that you can kind of give to people, during this time that we're in? And I said, yes, it's a tough time. We're living through a lot of uncertainty. People are out of work. People are scared to leave their house. People are watching loved ones die, and it's a rough time. I won't deny that. But in the midst of that, tough times always seem harder when you're in them, when you're in the thick of it. And so once you get out of that and you look back, you realize, well, man, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was when I was in it, And so I've just tried to encourage people to take one day at a time. Jesus told us not to worry about tomorrow. So, just worry about today, keep your chin up, and just focus on your blessings, and instead of focusing on what you don't have or what, different mandates or things that are forced on you and all that kind of stuff. And so I basically try to tell people that, you look back through history, there's been a lot of horrific things that have happened in certain countries, in certain cultures, societies, and this was not a surprise to God. He knew that this was coming, and and I think He's going to bring a lot of good out of it.
We've often asked people, when Gloria and I have a chance just to do talking and not singing, we say, How many of you have learned your big lessons of life during great times, and everything was going great? You were on top of the world. A few people will raise their hands. How many of you have learned the real lessons of life when you were in the valley and when it was really, really tough? If audiences are honest, most people will say, 90% of the audience will say, I've learned the real important stuff in life when I was on my back and I was struggling. Yeah. And I was struggling. Yeah. So if that is the case, this is a wonderful opportunity to learn. And I, with you, have heard a lot of people say, the grass is a little greener this year. The skies are a little bit bluer. The waters are a little bit clearer. The fishing is more fun. The drinking coffee at a distance with my friends is even better. And for us who've got a good marriage, you have one and I have one, the time with Gloria has just been great. I mean, we've been together 57 years, and most nights we'll be eating alone, and we'll look at each other and say, well, if we have to do this, I don't know of anybody else I'd rather do this with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to be forced to kind of slow down at times. Like you say, you tend to pay attention to what's around you more, and you focus on the blessings that you have, instead of being so busy and so frantic to where you lose sight of that or start taking those things for granted. And you're right. We learn more, we grow more. During tough times, God has a way of pruning us, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it was His will for us to endure that hardship or go through some tough time or endure some kind of loss. But, Romans 8:28 says that He's going to, bring good out of that for those who love Him. And, one of my favorite verses is James 1:12 that says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. Uh-huh. And, I feel like I've been under trial, for a long time, and I've tried and done my due diligence to remain steadfast through a lot of that. And, it's not easy. God never promised that it would be easy. He Jesus told us that we would have suffering in this world, but to be courageous because He's conquered the world. So, I'm thankful for that wisdom and that insight, that still rings true today.
And for you who may be seeing this fine man for the first time, Josh Turner has been one of country music's most recognizable voices, selling more than 8.5 million units and amassing more than 2.5 billion global streams. That's a bunch of people listening to your music.
That's billion with a B. B as in Bill.
But, you know, it's amazing. You could be around forever, and there's still folks. In fact, it was fun for Gloria and me. We were going to Muncie the other night, and somebody sent me a copy of your new project. And so, I mean, Gloria and I are big fans of your voice, and we started listening to that and reading the copy. You made a point in the copy where you say, "I've always loved sad songs," and I thought that's interesting. Speak to that, Josh. You, as a country music fan, growing up.
Well, I haven't always understood that. I always gravitated towards those sad songs because I always felt more. When I heard those sad songs, I felt sorry for the singer and the song. I felt sorry for whatever the situation was. I guess I had empathy there, but it made me think more. I tried to relate it to my own life and ask, like, what would I do in that certain situation or whatever, and and I think in some ways too, it's kind of biblical because what's the verse about? It's better to be in mourning than to be at a feast or whatever. I can't remember the exact verse, but it's I think the presence of the Holy Spirit is you can feel it more in those kinds of situations because the Spirit ministers to the brokenhearted. So.
And it seems, I have a friend, Mark Lowry, who says God always uses broken vessels to pour out his oil for healing. When I was a kid, speaking of sad songs, we grew up in a country home, even in Indiana, and my mom would play Red Foley's old song, Old Shep, when I was a lad and old Shep was a pup. And every time my brother and I would get into that song, we loved that song, and we get to the last verse where he was growing old, and the vet said, we're going to have to put old Shep down. Danny and I'd always stand up and say, "Don't kill him, don't kill him." But it was a redemptive song because it would end up saying, "But if God has a heaven, there's one thing I know, old Shep has a wonderful home." And so country music always, I think, has touched on those nerves. One of the writers that you're saluting, or one of the singers and writers that you're saluting in this process, is Hank Williams. And I don't know of anyone who really touched on the nerve of what real life is all about. Real life is, and as I wonder where you are, I'm so lonesome I could cry. I mean, you talk about great, great lines. The country music writer has always done that.
Yeah, Hank Williams was very in touch with, the human heart and human emotion and real life and what was going on around him. One of his famous quotes was, "If you can't write a song in 20 minutes, it ain't worth writing." That's debatable, but like, I understand what he's saying. It's like you have to have a grasp on what you're writing about in order to write about it. And so yeah, it's been a part of country music, from the beginning, and it's been an art form and a genre that allows a singer to sing about anything they want to, and that's one of the main things that appealed to me early on as a young boy about country music was that I wasn't restricted to singing about certain subject matter. It was like a blank canvas, and you could just go and paint whatever you wanted to paint, and so that's always been very freeing to me, and that includes those sad, heartbreak songs. And so,
have you sung in Montgomery at the City Auditorium there? That they say part of that City Auditorium was the auditorium where his funeral was held, and then right around the corner there's a little museum. Have you been to that?
I've been to the museum. I've been. I didn't get to go inside the old home place down in Georgiana, but I've been there. I've seen that house where he grew up, and I've been to the gravesite probably 5 times in my life. And I've been to the City Auditorium. I haven't played there. I have played in Montgomery, but just not at that venue. But taking my picture with the Hank statue down there and all that. Yeah, I've always loved, Hank, and, his music inspired my very first hit, Long Black Train. So I have him to thank for that. And, it's just, I've just loved, the storytelling and just the emotions that country music has made me feel throughout the years, and how it's been a comfort to me, in good times and bad.
Gloria and I have spent our lives in gospel music, and we've held in high regard the gospel legends in our field. But boy, I got to tell you, country is so closely tied to who we are and what we do. We watched all 8 sessions. It'd be 8 hours of listening to the Ken Burns country music history. And man, Gloria and I just sat there and said, this is amazing. The two fields are so intertwined, and they're both about real life and real stuff. And of course, Hank Williams, on his tombstone, with all the great secular songs he wrote, the song that's on his tombstone is "I saw the light, no more in darkness, no more in light. Praise the Lord, I saw the light."
Yep, yeah, and that was a song, as you know, that was on my last record, "I Serve a Savior," and won a Dove Award. And I think I called you on the phone after that, and just was just checking in with you and congratulating you on your award and all of that. So yeah, it was probably Sonia Isaacs that helped me win that award. I don't know. She would probably take the credit for it. But,
knowing Sonia, yeah.
but I got to go home with the award, so that was good.
You got the bird on your wall, right?
That's right.
But there is something when we play in that part of the country, in southern Alabama, that I have to think, here's part of my history, here's part of where I grew up. You made a reference with this project. You call it Turner's Mount Rushmore of country music. I was one time asked, who was the biggest male influence in my life? And the first person that came to my mind was my father, and he was great, he was wonderful. But I said to this person who asked the question, mine would be a composite of 5 people. It's funny that you listed 5 artists. And I said it had to be my dad and my granddad, but I listed 3 other people who were in our field. And you said, on the field, your Mount Rushmore example of the greatest in the country music field would not be just one person that influenced you, but you had 5 major influences.
Yeah, it was, I've always referred to it as my Mount Rushmore of country music, and it's basically Randy Travis, John Anderson, Johnny Cash, Vern Gosdin, and Hank Williams. And, those 5 artists, the biggest thing that I learned from those 5 was how to be Josh Turner. They're all 5 of them are very iconic in the way that they looked, and the way that they sounded, and the way that they approached songs, and they all five, you know, have made a huge contribution to country music and made a mark on country music. And so I've always said that with any song of mine that you hear, you can hear at least one, you know, traces of at least one of those artists. And so they've made a huge influence on me and a huge impact on me, and they still are. I'm still learning from them. And, you know, I'm just thankful that I have them to call heroes, and even some of them I've been able to call friends, like Randy Travis and John Anderson.
When you were in Belmont, I read one time when you were a student at Belmont, you went out to Hickory Lake and knocked on Johnny Cash's door?
I did. Yeah.
There were no dogs?
I didn't see any. But
what happened?
It was, you know, looking back on that experience, I think it was a divine appointment, because I was a student at Belmont. I didn't have a record deal yet. I had like $25 in my checking account. And I was reading Johnny Cash's autobiography, and I had read about the neurological disorder that he had been diagnosed with. And so one day after reading some in his book, I sat back and I was thinking, if Johnny Cash dies and I don't get to meet him, I'm going to be so disappointed. And so I came up with this crazy plan of like just driving to his house and finding out where he lived and all that. And so I did, and this was before GPS and all that, so I got lost a couple of times before I got there, and by the time I found the place, the sun had gone down. It was dark outside, which made me nervous, and so when I finally find the house, it's real dark around the house. It's on the lake. I see several SUVs in the driveway, and the gate is just wide open. And so I just drove on in and parked and went up to the only door I saw and knocked, and nobody came. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, that gate was open. They obviously were expecting somebody, because they wouldn't just have the gate open for no reason. This is Johnny Cash's house we're talking about. And so I knocked again, still no answer, and I'm thinking, man, this is like, what in the world? So I walked around the corner of the house, and it was just pitch black dark around there, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going over there. They'll call the cops on me if I do. So I went back to the original door, and there's a stained glass window to the side of the door, and I can see a painting of June on the wall. So I'm like, this has got to be the place. So I knocked really, really hard on the door, and I hear this voice from the depths of the house saying, "Coming, coming." And so I'm waiting, and all of a sudden I see the door open, and it's Johnny Cash.
Was he black?
Answering the door. His hair was kind of messed up. He had reading glasses on. He had a gold necklace on with a cross on it, and he had like a button-down denim shirt, kind of halfway buttoned, and he was wearing bedroom shoes, and he kind of flinched because I obviously wasn't who he was expecting. And I sure as heck didn't expect Johnny Cash to be answering the door. And so I reached out my hand and I said, "Mr. Cash, I'm Josh Turner. I'm from South Carolina. I'm a student at Belmont University." And just kind of started talking about how big of a fan I was, and I appreciated his witness and all the stuff he did with Billy Graham, and I had read about the neurological disorder that he had, and I just wanted him to know that I'd been praying for him, and I was probably talking 90 miles a minute. And, I finally just kind of had to take a breath, and I told him, I said, I'm sorry, my heart's about to beat out of my chest. And so he kind of laughed and said, well, we're all human. And so I just let him know that, I cared about him, that he was a hero of mine, and that I'd been praying for him, and wished him the best. And so he shook my hand again, and said, you know, how much he appreciated me, and said that he was going to go back inside and rest. And I said, I understand. And so he shuts the door, and I go to walk back to my truck, and I just break down crying because I could not believe what had just happened. And so my whole way back to campus, I'm just like trying to digest all of this. And the morning that I woke up, the day that I found out that he had died, I was so thankful that I had taken that risk because that was the only opportunity I ever had to meet him.
What a story. What a story. And, and what a beautiful response from him. I mean, he could have had somebody else go to the door and a number of other things. So you found a very, you found what you thought he was, right?
Yeah, somebody asked me yesterday what I learned from that experience, and I said, well, I learned that if a young artist ever knocks on my door, don't shoot him because he might end up being famous and talking about me one day.
That's a great story. And in listening to the project, when we came to the Caretaker song, the Undertaker, and I knew one of the five was Johnny Cash, I said, that has to be a Johnny Cash song. And I'd never heard it before. And that's the first time I've heard it.
It's undeniably Johnny Cash, and that's one of the reasons that I chose this song was the fact that I'm like, yeah, I could pick Folsom Prison Blues or I Walk the Line or Ring of Fire or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But that's too easy, you know, and I wanted to give Johnny Cash more credit than that because I feel like, you know, you can sing any one of his songs and everybody's going to know that it's a Johnny Cash song because he was that iconic. And so The Caretakers is one of those songs that I fell in love with years ago because it tells such an interesting, intriguing story about a guy who lives in a cemetery. And the first lyric of the song is, I live in the cemetery, old caretaker they call me. And from that first line, he has your attention, and you want to know what the rest of the song is about. And so it's basically, he spends so much time there that he sees all of these funeral services taking place, and he sees all these people come and go and how they behave in the wake of losing a loved one. And it gets him thinking, it's like, okay, what kind of effect am I having on the people around me? And who's going to show up when they lay me in the ground? You know, and so it's always been a compelling story for me. And musically, it changes tempo 3 times, and I, you know, kind of injected my name in the place of Johnny's in there to make it more personal, and so and it's also the first time I've ever played guitar on a record. So, you know, I owe that to my producer, Kenny Greenberg. He asked me if I would play guitar on it because I had done this song on an Opry Country Classics show one night, and Marty Stewart was introducing me, and I came out, just sat on a stool, and I played this song. And I don't know what the crowd thought about it, but because it's such a morbid song, but Kenny loved the recording so much, he said, man, you need to play on this. And he said, you know, we need to try to recreate this. And so that's what happened. And yeah, it's a special moment on the record.
You know, Marty obviously is just a big country music fan. And I don't know of anybody more knowledgeable about the history of the music than Marty. And Marty lived right next door to Johnny before the house burned down. Mm-hmm. Marty's a good friend also. Gloria and I have always been intrigued with Chris Christopherson, a Rhodes Scholar and a country music icon, and an actor, talented. Larry Gatlin says his poetry, that Sunday Morning Coming Down, many of the great songs he wrote, he said, he is one of a kind. But I have said this in other settings, as far as a gospel song in the last century, one of the most honest gospel songs that I know of is, Please Help Me, Jesus, I've wasted it so. Help me, Jesus, I know what I am. Now that I know that I needed you so, help me, Jesus. My soul's in your hands. And I think of that scripture of the two people coming into the temple. The one was very arrogant. I'm glad I'm not like that guy. And the other one just simply said, you know what I am? I'm a wretch. Was that a great experience? Were you together when you filmed that, or when you recorded it, or did you just send the tape to Chris?
I had already recorded the song, and then we started talking about the idea of bringing Chris in to sing on it. And I've been friends with Chris and his wife Lisa for a long time, and so I texted Lisa back Thanksgiving last year, and I said, what are the chances of Chris coming in and being a part of this project and singing on this song? And she said, when and where? And I was just floored by that response. They were willing from the get-go, and they made it happen. We sent them the tracks and everything. He did it out in Hawaii. She took some video footage of him and took some pictures while he was in there. And when we got it all put together, I mean, man, you know, every time I hear it, I can't believe that it exists, you know, to have a country music Hall of Famer, a former highwayman, you know, just incredible singer, songwriter, actor. You know, it's just he's lived an incredible life, and to be on little old Josh Turner's record is pretty humbling. He could have easily, you know, told me no, but he made the effort to come into the studio and do that, and it turned out great. And it's one of my favorite tracks on the record.
Same here. We loved it. We loved it. Gospel songs and country tunes talk a lot about this subject, about being grateful for what you got, and I love this particular song. A 40-room mansion sitting on the hill. I've never lived in a place like that, and I never will. But I've got the mornings. I love the but I've got the morning sun, and I've got the evening, and I got a woman that I love lying close to me, and I've got good friends. I got the moon and stars. My bills are paid. There's food on the table, shoes on my feet. Yeah, that could be a praise and worship song.
It kind of pretty much. You know, it was written by Max D. Barnes, and it was initially originally a hit by my hero and my friend John Anderson. And this song's always, you know, just made me feel good every time I hear it, every time I sing it. And it's something I can relate to. It's something I kind of live out, you know, in my daily life. And so I could have chosen any John Anderson song, because they're all good and worth singing. But I landed on this one because of the way it's always made me feel. And having John come in and sing on it, you know, was great. You know, John and I have been friends now for almost 20 years, and so it's always good to collaborate with him and sing with him. You know, he's been through a lot of health challenges himself, and to hear how great he sounded on this record it did my heart a lot of good. And one of the jokes that I made to the studio musicians the day that we recorded this song was the original version of this song was in the key of D, and so with how low my voice is, I'm always having to adjust the key, you know, to where it suits my voice right. And so we ended up doing it in C sharp. And so I told all the guys that, you know, the original version of this song was written by Max D. Barnes, but my version is written by Max C sharp Barnes. So, all the musicians thought it was funny, and I tell non-musicians that, and it's like crickets, you know, it's like nobody gets it. So.
Let me tell you a story like that one. You know, I'm a songwriter and I play the piano, but I'm not a Gordon Mote. Okay, so I was playing a tune that we're getting ready to track in a session. And when I got done, Ben Spear, who's a friend of mine, and we were with a bunch of musicians, looked at me and said, "Bill, I have never heard anybody play as long as you have played and improve as little as you have improved," which was very funny with a group of musicians.
Yeah.
The next week or so, I was out playing for a soloist in our field, a gospel soloist by the name of Doug Oldham. He was a great singer in the early days. And we were trying to get our songs, Gloria and I were trying to get our songs out. So I would go out and play for him if he'd sing "He Touched Me Because He Lives," a couple of our tunes while we were out there. So Doug had heard that story, and he thought it was funny. We were in a little country church somewhere, about 100 people. And so when he introduced me, he said, "This is my accompanist, Bill Gaither. He's not really that great a keyboard player. In fact, I've never heard anybody play as long as he has played and improve as little as he's improved." Crickets. Those old farmers just went. And so when it was over, people came out and said, "I didn't appreciate what he said about your playing."
Yeah.
So you
How dare you talk about Bill Gaither that way? That's funny.
Great. Did you do this? Did you record this during the time you were down this spring and summer?
I started recording it kind of the end of last year. Well, I take that back. It was more like the end of summer last year because I guess it would have been early September, I guess, last year when I went into the studio to do the tracks and everything. And then from that point, I started doing all my vocals and everything. And then, all of my part was done prior to the shutdown with the pandemic and all of that. Yeah. And we had a few guest appearances that had to happen after that. So we got all that done. It was tricky navigating some of that, but we got it all done. It sounds great, and I'm very proud of this record. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the fans think about it.
Great. Josh, it's always a joy to talk with you. I love your heart. I love your attitude about life, and it comes out in your voice when I hear it. You sounded so relaxed, and so good to spend this time with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Good spending time with you. Always good to see you and talk to you and tell Gloria we said hey.
Blessings. Same here.
All righty. Y'all have a good week.
Good.